My name is Jessica, and I did my sustainability presentation on the waste and recycling chapter, which is also chapter 14. So to start off, I wanted to discuss the waste management hierarchy, which has an ultimate goal of minimizing waste streams. This image demonstrates importance based on the width of the triangle. So on the left, the triangle depicts society's old way of thinking, which was mainly landfill or dump waste rather than actually reducing the amount of waste produced. However, moving to the right triangle, we can see that there has been a shift in the way we look at disposal. Now, it is incredibly important to reduce the amount of waste produced in order to benefit the whole system. And the next step is following that is recycling and composting. Recycling is the process of separating and saving goods that can be broken down and repurposed later on. This concept also includes the well-known phrase reduce, reuse, recycle, which is a preferred strategy when compared to landfills and incinerators. The next step is conversion technologies, which includes incinerators or waste energy plants. They're the same thing, that use waste to produce something else. Lastly, we have landfilling. While I should be here to tell you that landfills are highly unsustainable, I'm not going to do that because I personally think that they've improved greatly since dumps and should be a form of sustainable treatment when they also have the ability to produce beneficial products like energy. So in general, we don't want a landfill because there are better options, but having it as a last resort is also okay. Before I talk about places waste can end up, I'm going to talk about the actual disposal chain. So obviously, as a person, you generate waste. In fact, you produce about 4.6 pounds per day. The waste produced in your home is called municipal solid waste, or MSW. So we, the consumer, consume items, whatever it may be, and then we throw it out. This is then picked up by garbage men who haul it to one of three places. Our MSW is taken to either a landfill, a waste energy plant, or a material recovery facility, also known as a MRF, letters MRF, pronounced like MURF. Depending on the location, they each will produce different things. Landfills are able to compost, recycle construction and demolition waste, and they also produce energy from the methane production. Waste energy plants directly produce energy that can be added to the grid, and MRFs produce pure recyclables. I will be covering this in more detail in the following slides, but... So before I explain each of the disposal type locations, I wanted to discuss the differences between like a landfill, what it deals with compared to recycling. Landfills operate mainly with MSW, construction demolition waste, industrial waste, and hazardous waste. Like I said, MSW is the waste we produce. Construction and demolition, or C&D waste, is like big chunks of concrete and steel. Industrial waste is waste produced from materials and scrap left over from manufacturing, and hazardous waste is things such as batteries. Recycling, on the other hand, deals with repurposing some of the materials so they don't make it into the landfill. Composting is where food waste is naturally broken down by worms and other bacteria and moisture until it forms soil. The soil can then be like normal Home Depot bagged soil wherever it's needed. And there are also recycling potentials for e-waste through the e-Stewards program. E-Stewards is an environmental management system that allows for proper recycling and reuse of electronic waste. And also another interesting recycling potential is through salvage yards that break down automotives to recover metals. Just to dive a little further, the waste stream is typically broken down to about 76% industrial, 18% special waste, 3.5% construction and demolition waste, and 2.5% MSW. The MSW can be further broken down into many different categories, including everything from textiles to yard waste to food waste. And looking at this, you may be wondering how MSW is the smallest and industrial is the most. But if you think about it, everything that comes into our homes came from a factory that is producing industrial waste. So this is why waste reduction is incredibly important, because what we do affects the whole system, even if it maybe doesn't appear that way right up front. Now we're going to get into the different waste disposals. Landfills are likely the most common and well-known form, but they have improved a lot. In ye olden days, trash was simply disposed of by digging a hole and tossing trash in without caring what it did to anything else. I mean, we literally used to throw away whole cars into landfills. But now we use sanitary landfills as mandated by the government. And the key features include a HDPE, or plastic liner, that is paired with thick layers of soil and clay, a leachate collection system, waste, multiple gas collection and monitoring systems, groundwater monitoring systems for when the landfill leaks, and a final cover. So leachate is trash juice, literally, as rain falls on the landfill, it will percolate through and collect all sorts of stuff. For example, the batteries you threw away, yeah, that acid's in it. And the general pH of leachate depends on what's in the landfill. So it can be basic, it can be acidic, it can be neutral, kind of whatever's there. It is also important to note that all landfills leak. There is no way to fully prevent a landfill from leaking over the course of its whole life, but we do have preventative measures such as leachate collection systems and groundwater monitoring wells. A big downside to leachate is that it's crazy expensive to get rid of. So while it's being produced in mass quantities, it's very hard to get rid of. Because of this, it typically ends up getting stored in for an extended period of time in like ponds, which sometimes animals fall in, which is not good. And it's just to reduce the general cost if they can hold it longer. They also collect gas, such as methane, and either flare them to produce carbon dioxide, or they are able to move gas through turbines to produce energy. So the next form of disposal is waste energy. Waste energy is the process of burning trash to produce energy. The materials start by being dumped into a big trash pit where a huge claw picks them up and moves it into a hopper. From the hopper, the trash moves down to like grates where it is bounced around and burned. And then the heat coming from the burning trash boils water in big tubing and coils above, which turns a steam-powered turbine. And the rotations in the turbine produce energy, which is then added to the electricity grid. So while in general the process sounds better than leaving our trash in the ground, it also has its own downside. It produces a lot of unwanted volatilized chemicals and also leaves about 10% by volume in the form of ash. This ash is typically landfilled once the potentially recyclable metals are drawn out. Also, interestingly, in Lee County, we share a waste energy plant and a landfill with Hendry County and use all of the ash as daily cover for the landfill. The last disposal type is a MRF, and MRFs are the main recycling facility for MSW. The waste typically comes in and is sent to a pre-sort, which is done manually. And this part of the process is crucial to get out anything that comes in that's not supposed to. Some examples are plastic bags, tubing, or bowling balls. I'm not kidding. I went to the MRF and there was a lady who literally said someone tried to recycle a bowling ball. The main purpose of removing these items is so that they don't break the machinery. This is very costly and is not beneficial to anything. Next, the materials will go through some engineered sorting process, and there's no set in stone order in which the materials need to be removed, just to get them removed. In the graphic presented, glass is removed first by sorting it by color, so green, amber, blue, or clear, and then breaking it. Then paper materials are sorted out by screens that they move over while other items drop out and continue on. Then ferrous metals are removed using a magnet, while non-ferrous metals are removed by an eddy current. Lastly, plastics are sorted, and plastic is numbered 1 through 9 based on the materials that were used and what kind of resins were used. And then once the stream is fully sorted, the remaining products are just taken to a landfill. So all of this information is interesting. There is a big change that is needed. This is the idea of cradle to cradle. Currently, in the industrial process, it's very linear. We take raw materials, make them into goods, and then waste them into one of the talked about ways. However, what if we could change that way of thinking by looping back to the beginning when an item is supposed to meet the end of its life? Only in human anthropogenic world are items linear. In the natural environment, everything has a closed loop cycle. This is the idea of zero waste. By using every wasted material as the starting point for a new object, this would drastically reduce the waste we produce and eventually maybe even remove waste completely. So overall, the main goal of this new thinking is to get people to rethink what they are discarding and maybe get them thinking, how can we stop producing so much waste in the first place?